My name is Angie. I'm your host for today's Coffee Tea Chat episode, and this is with an amazing and awesome person, Mary. I've known her for a bit, and if you don't know her, she is the CEO of Women's Society Cyberjutsu, and we're going to definitely talk about her personal story. Be prepared to have your coffee, your tea, your snacks for today. I have a strong refresher. Mary, what do you have?
I have
today?
coffee from Memphis from a Black-owned shop called Coffee Black. Yeah, it's actually really good. So I get it shipped in monthly because I love their coffee there.
Amazing. Thank you for the shout out too.
Yeah, definitely want to shout them out. If you're in Memphis, go take a look. Check them out.
Nice. I have a few questions for you, Mary. This is about your professional background and your entry into cybersecurity.
See, now you got me going back in time, like way back in time. So I joined the industry in 2009, so almost 16 years ago at this point. I come from a military background. My folks were Air Force, so I've grown up in very deep, diverse environments across the States and in Europe. I graduated high school in Europe. I was 14 out of 52 in my class, so that's how small our senior class was overseas before I left. My degree is a business degree, but I wasn't trying to do tech per se. I was trying to do architecture. So I'm a builder by heart. I love to design. I wanted to make those little cities and just kind of build models. Obviously, I have the Lego wall behind me. So if that's any indication, I like to build stuff. And I ended up changing my major into a business degree, but focusing on the computer side of things. You know, from the architecture side, I was doing tech. I was in retail for a while. So before I got into tech, before I got my security clearance, I worked retail, armed security work. I carried a gun for the State Department, all those things. I did that so that I could get a clearance, right? Sometimes you have to do things that you don't really want to do to get to that next level, whether that's moving laterally into a position that gives you a title or, you know, moving companies all together, whatever it means. It's a temporary thing. And so I did that for a while before actually getting my first job in IT. I was a network engineer for the National Geospatial Agency out in the DC area. I was responsible for helping them transition from all of their different offices around that area to their new campus in Springfield, Virginia. So I got to deal with all these different types of classified networks and implementing things like out-of-band management. We had the data center and all of our equipment was in that data center, but our office was someplace else. And so if we didn't want to drive to the data center, we needed some way to get to those systems. That was my very first project into IT, into security, into routing and switching, collaborating, relationship building, trying to do all of these things in tech. And I hated that job.
You hated it. It was the first tech job.
I was like, yeah, I was really gung-ho. I was making $61,000 because one, I didn't know how to negotiate. And two, I was just like, I just need a job. They put me as the secretary. And I was like, no, I want to pull cables. I want to crawl on the ground. I want to do all of this stuff. At the time, I didn't like that. I was like, no, I'm just going to go to the business thing, call it a day. As I look back on that role, I realized that, yeah, they put me in a secretary type of role. But that role gave me the opportunity to communicate and collaborate with everybody, figure out what they were working on, do the research, gain additional knowledge about technology and tech and how networking works. While I hated it, it was a great lesson. And I take all of those lessons and stuff with me. From there, I just worked in a bunch of different government agencies. I worked for Department of Homeland Security, at US CERT, now CISA. I did that for a couple of years I was doing network traffic analysis. So I was using ArcSight to find and identify vulnerabilities and then talking to the different agencies about trying to fix it. Vulnerability management, configuration management. My favorite tool when I was working for the Army was SolarWinds, right? Because it was the tool to help us with managing our configurations and our IPs and the network. Did a stint in the government and left. I left in 2016 to move out to Las Vegas to work at the Las Vegas Sands Corporation. The Venetian and the Palazzo, for those that are familiar with Vegas Strip, they were the two of the most expensive casinos built back in 1997, as the founder and owner, who's now deceased, built it after Italy. So if you've ever been, it looks just like Italy. That's your trip away to Europe for, a day.
That's good. Never been to Italy, so there we go.
For Black Hat and DEF CON, take a peek, see all of the paintings and all of that stuff. But there, I helped build their vulnerability management program because they had just gotten breached. And if you're familiar with any of the podcasts that tell stories about breaches that happened, there's one for the Sands Corp on there. It's about 15 minutes. And so my job was to help build this out and integrate this into the enterprise, into the entire global organization. Vulnerability analytics, helping with prioritization, risk reduction, and risk exceptions, and getting the team to just do the work. A lot of cyber, a lot of tech is about relationships. It's about collaboration. It's about getting buy-in from stakeholders. And so that was a lot of that work there. I've done sales. I was a sales engineer for Palo Alto, so SOC automation, architecture. So I full circle architect back to that first love, which is a cool place to be as well, because you get to see all of the projects and all of the security things that are going on in the entire enterprise, not just in the security group. Got to explore firewall, global organization, vulnerability analytics, helping with prioritization, risk reduction, and risk exceptions, and getting the team to just do the work. A lot of cyber, a lot of tech is about relationships. It's about collaboration. It's about getting buy-in from stakeholders. And so that was a lot of that work there. I've done sales. I was a sales engineer for Palo Alto, so SOC automation, architecture. So I full circle architect back to that first love, which is a cool place to be as well, because you get to see all of the projects and all of the security things that are going on in the entire enterprise, not just in the security group. Got to explore firewalls and firewall automation and pushing rules and things of that nature in that role. And now I'm at Foot Locker. I'm a security lead working on the vulnerability management, risk exception program, governance and risk, and helping build and integrate that into the organization. So that's kind of my long-winded background.
I like that timeline that you gave. You gave a good story, literally from the bottom. You're like, I don't know about this job, to like, now you're the lead blocker. That's amazing. That's something you don't hear every day, and you stuck with it. You stuck with cyber regardless.
Man, listen, if it wasn't for the fact that I like to build stuff, and I'm not going to lie, the money, I would have been like, yeah, F this, I'm going to business. My mom's in finance and business. I know that side of the world, but this side of things is a challenge. When I saw router configurations on the internet in plain text, you shouldn't see that. It's like,
Exactly.
wait a minute, hold up, let me run this back.
Right?
I was like, wow, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yes, yes, we definitely do, and we need more women.
Yes.
I definitely want to talk about that, and especially with you, Mary. Can you describe a pivotal moment early in your career that shaped your approach to cybersecurity? I know you mentioned business background and obviously your first role. Like, what lessons did you learn that helped guide your work today?
The pivotal moment that helped me say, let me stay in tech and let me move over to like hacking, cyber, that stuff, was I went to a class. It was a Security Plus boot camp at a place out in Greenbelt, Maryland. And one of the teachers, Joe McCrae, he came in from the ethical hacking course and was talking to us about ethical hacking and what that's like. And he's the one that showed me those configurations on the internet. And I said,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I need to move over here and do this. That was one of those moments that kind of put me down the pathway to focus more on the security side of things and network security and whatnot. Other pivotal moments. Honestly, quitting my job without a job. I left Palo Alto in 2023. I didn't have a job waiting available. So I think that was a turning point in my career, in my life, because I did the stint in sales. It's one of those things of, I don't know if I'm really cut out for sales engineering. Like, I'm really good with the technical stuff. I can talk to you all day about the tools, but trying to sell you on something, yeah, not so much. And it kind of helped me reevaluate where I was trying to go. I said to myself, all right, the next job I get, I need to have some sort of leadership title, some sort of role, etc. Because my goal is to get to some of those higher positions and be able to really influence, impact, and make change. That time forced me. I went and started my MBA program. So I'm in that right now. Started really diving into AI and looking at those kinds of things. Because I said, you know what? I got to skate to where the puck is going. And right now the puck is business and AI. So let me get into that. Quitting that job, I think, was another pivotal moment. And I talk about that in my pivot course too. I have a course on pivoting into roles, whether they're new roles or senior level roles, or pivoting your company from where it's currently at to where you want it to be. So yeah, I'm in a pivot time right now.
I think it's a good thing to be pivoting instead of just complacent and just being like, okay, yeah, I'll just stay in this job for 5 years. It's good pay. But where's the growth? Where's the challenge?
Yeah.
Where's that yearn for learning? Where's that, I feel like that's more of a reward than just staying in the same role and you're just comfortable. And then what's next?
That's right. Like, and you have to stay in a role I'm all for job hopping, and I've done that. I feel like not Palo Alto, the Sands was the longest job I'd ever had, like with one company. I think it's great to job hop, obviously, to get to the salary you're looking for, but sometimes it's okay to stay a little bit longer
Right.
because you gain additional skills, you're able to do more stretch projects, and then once you leave, you're able to take that knowledge with you, and your resume is more rounded. You can show that, yes, I know how to integrate processes, I know how to bring in all the business owners or whatever it is, business units, to make these decisions, I know how to calculate risk, because you stayed a little bit longer at a company to get some of that institutional knowledge and that experience. Yeah, job hop, but give it a little time.
Yeah, that's true. It just made me think about that. So, I mean, I don't want to play devil's advocate, but like, how long do you think someone should stay in their role?
2 to 3 years,
Hard
right?
question.
Yeah, and it's going to depend on where you're working. Like if you're in a position where there's absolutely no growth, then it's time to go. Right? If you talk to your manager and your boss and you're like, "Hey, this is what I desire to do, this is where I desire to be. Is there an opportunity here for that to happen?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, not really, blah blah blah." You probably don't want to be there because you're not going to get what you need from that company. If
Mhm.
they're like, "Yeah, we have these pathways," or, "Hey, I'll coach you," and they actually know how to coach because everybody's not a coach, but they're actually willing to help put you into positions to be able to grow, I'd say stick around, right? And make it known to the right people that you're interested in these kinds of movements and positions. And hey, I want to be a CISO. Okay, let me help you get to that. And this is what we're going to have to do for the next 6 months or the next year to get you prepared and ready for that position. I've been at Foot Locker now just over a year. And who knows? I hope I can stay a little bit longer, but they're getting acquired. So I don't know, right? Don't know what's going to happen at that point. I was at Palo for 3. And there I was able to go from one role to another. So that's another thing too, is if there's an opportunity to move from, you've been in your current role for 2 years or 2.5 years or 3 years or whatever, are there opportunities in other groups to get additional experience that you can transition to, right? There may be a pay bump involved in it. It may be a promotion involved in it, right? And so there's opportunity. So sometimes you have to stay a little bit longer to see those things and then put your hat in the ring to get those positions.
I like your answer. It was pretty good. I like how you broke it down because that can be a gray area, I know, for a lot of people, whether they're breaking into cyber or they're in cyber or they're trying to go up the corporate ladder. Yeah. Even with freelancing too, like when is it time to, change?
Actually, that's a very valid point. The same kinds of in freelancing and entrepreneurship, you got to be cognizant of those times to change sooner because you're dealing with your own money. And at this point, right? There's no checks that are just going to automatically come in every month, every 2 weeks, whatever it looks like. You have to be even more, you have to have a strategy. You have to have milestones and check-ins. I read the book 12-Week Year. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a red and white book. And basically the author of that breaks down projects and tasks in 12-week sprints, essentially. And so you're doing what you would do in the year in 12 weeks. And so you take your bigger goal and you break that down into, okay, what do I need to do this first 12 weeks to help me reach that bigger goal? I'm going to do these 3 things and that's it. Switching the mindset and going that route, I think, can be really helpful as well. Read that book if you can. 12-week year. Oh, here we go. This one. It's a quick read, lots of tangible things to do, and it actually works. When you work it, it works. So that's how I feel like we need to start thinking, especially when it comes to our performance and what we're sharing and how we're doing things. Let's work on it early, fix the problem, adjust. And that's what entrepreneurs should do as well. All right, we did this 12 weeks. We didn't hit our numbers. We didn't hit our goals. Okay, what do we need to do to readjust and fix this? But you got to do it faster as an entrepreneur.
I like your answers. I think they're valid and I think they stick with the times now. It's very adaptable. I heard some other advice from other folks in the past, and with all due respect, I feel like it's a little outdated with some things. I appreciate you mentioned like AI because a lot of people are using AI. Yeah, I had some students, they were like, can I use AI first before Google? Because that's like the new thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I go Google first.
Yeah, I'm pro Google first.
I go to the search engines first, and then I go to my chat is Mimi's musings, and talk to her about the topic because AI, it hallucinates. It'll pull back anything you want it to pull back.
Exactly.
So it's like, let me see what's out there first, and then let me utilize Chat GPT to get the information that I actually need. I was messing around like, how do I create a chat bot that knows me based on what's out on the internet about me, things I've written that I can have a conversation with if I need to do something. And so I just created a little thing and I go in and we have a conversation. It's like, okay, cool, thanks. And it's like, hey, I want to apply for this job. Does my resume match? Where are the gaps? And then I can go in and update and fix all those things. And I have a friend who's got a lot of GPTs, a lot of different types. He's got like a doctor, a lawyer,
Wow.
and when he needs to talk to one of them, hey, I have this issue. Can you help?
You made it all for free.
All for free. Yes. All you got to do is have a subscription. That's the way we're going, right? The virtual assistants, those jobs that don't need a person in them, to give you the information. And if you're not a part of it, you might get left. Even if you don't like AI, even if you want to live off of the grid, understanding how it works and just understanding its capabilities is really important.
I know you mentioned this in the past because I'm glad you mentioned AI. There was something about, like, I think the Black community and AI, and I remember you mentioned something about it. Would you like to bring that up?
Yeah. So obviously, with most things tech related, minority groups are always the last to be a part of that, right? They're left out. They're not considered not as a whole, they're not considered in the design or the development of said tools. And so there's a lot of bias in there. You go to any of those chatbots, you'll find some information about Black history, Black culture that pertain to those folks, but there's not a lot of Black and brown voices in those conversations. And so that leads to a lot of bias in the learning, a lot of racism, right? It's not, and I don't think it's outward racism. I think it's racism that's ingrained in the people that are developing the tool. And so that pours in, right?
Yeah.
And so when it starts to design people, women especially, it makes them look like a monkey, or that makes them look like they've got 4 or 5 different hands, or just not what we look like, right? We're beautiful women, we're great looking men and stuff like that. And so there's not a lot of us or other minorities represented in the data. There's a book that talks all about that too, The Invisible Women or Invisible Woman book. And they talk about how in data, women and minority data is missing from all of those things. And so heart medicine, they do all the testing on men and then they wonder why it doesn't work on women. Well, because they didn't test it on women. And so they talk about stories like that where, the crash test dummies, I don't know if you remember those, but they were guys. And there's like, well, women ride in the car too. And we have different body shapes and different things going on. And so they finally put a female presenting test dummy in there years later, but they already built the seat belts and all these things. And so same thing with AI. Those voices are missing, that experience, that knowledge, that data is missing. And so the information that's output is lacking that piece of, well, maybe this isn't the same impact for a different group of folks. That's why we got to get in now. I think all of us, women, minorities, we have to not just be users of it, but understand it and be able to contribute to its development.
I agree. That's why I'm bringing it up, because I want to bring more awareness. I feel like sometimes this topic is kind of like a taboo topic.
Yes.
Or you just don't talk about it. But that's why I also wanted to bring you here to bring more, perspective. Like I could say one thing, but I feel like people want to hear what you have to say about it to validate, that people don't feel alone.
Yes. Yes. And that's what we're here for. So that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. That's
exactly.
That's probably the purpose, to help folks how we can. And one way is to give them exposure to things that they may not have had exposure to, things that can change their lifestyle, their trajectory, right? Somebody that's making, and we talk about this a lot here in Vegas, making $30,000 a year, you can't really live comfortably. So now you get into tech, you get into AI, you're getting into these things, your income potential goes from 30 to 150, significantly changes a family's life. And that's what we're here for. So we have to share that knowledge and we have to spread the awareness about it.
Another great answer. Like I can't say I don't like your answers because that's gonna be weird.
Practice, I promise.
Promise this was not scripted. This is pure natural conversation today. We're talking about women, challenges, barriers, breaking barriers. So, what specific challenges have you faced that your male counterparts might not experience? Like, how have you navigated these professionally?
See, some years ago, I'd say the technical experience. Now, I want to say confidence, oddly enough. And it's not imposter syndrome. Over the last few years, I've realized that, yeah, I've picked up a lot of things and I've learned a lot of things around tech and business and VM, but the confidence to speak up. So, a lot of the times in my career, the way that I am in the nonprofit is not always the way that I am in my job. Usually at work, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna do the work. I'm gonna sit back in the corner, do the stuff because I don't want to be bothered by people. I just want to do. And so for a long time, it was very difficult for me to push back or to feel that if I speak up, what I say would be heard, would be included, would be accepted, versus it just being taken as somebody else's idea, because that's happened before. So that was always a challenge. I think when I got into the sales role and I was forced to kind of come out of that, I finally started to speak up. And now I do it all the time. Probably and if my senior director is listening, she probably is like, if you don't stop asking me questions. I've started to speak up more in those times, right? When something is wrong, I speak up more in the workspace. Because now, yeah, I'm afraid to get fired in this day and age at this time, but I also know that I can get another job. If I'm getting fired because I'm defending somebody, I'm standing up for somebody on my team, making sure that they're not being taken advantage of. And I surprise myself, to be honest. I'm like, ooh, okay. But I think that's a challenge that I had. And I think that's a challenge a lot of women have is the confidence because somebody's told us, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you're not supposed to be here. Oh, that's not correct what you said, even though you know it's correct, right? They make you feel like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. That's the reason Cyberjutsu was created, was to give that safe space so that we could build that confidence and feel strong and smart and be able to say what it is. Yeah, I'd never thought about that until today.
Well, I'm glad I asked to bring it back. And obviously, I support Cyberjutsu. I'm wearing literally
Yes.
last conference.
And award winner. Yes.
Yes, previous award winner. Yes. Amplifier. WSC with the hashtag, right?
Yep. WSC hash. Good one. I like
Yes.
that.
Yep. I still support.
Always. And we will always support you. You were a great addition to the organization and the programs and whatnot. And so it's always nice to see. One of the things about Jiu-Jitsu, and folks will ask me, they're like, weren't they members? It's like, yeah, so what? They're doing their own thing. Yeah, they should. Like, my job isn't to keep, obviously I want you all to stay members, right? Because it's a great group. It's cool. But my job isn't to keep you here. My job is to give you the tools you need to do what you want to do and then watch you soar and do better. Like, that's what any leader's job should be, I think, right?
Yes. I feel the same way. Yeah,
So,
we're on the same team. There's no competition whatsoever.
exactly.
It's lifting each other up. I think I
Yeah.
heard, what was it, Tanisha
Mhm.
from Black Girls Hack mentioned something about that too.
Yeah, Tanisha, that's my girl too. Tanisha was one of our members and she was on our volunteer team. And so when she started Black Girls Hack, I was like, okay, cool. How can we support? What do we need to do? How do we partner, etc.? Because one group isn't going to change the behavior, the face of the industry. It takes a village to do that. It takes a squad. It takes a tribe. It takes a group of folks putting in the work to make that change.
I agree. That's why I was like, we need to have an episode where we have WSC and Tech Cafe combined, because it takes, like you said, a whole village to make a difference in this world, honestly. For those who don't know, I was actually the previous director of cyber competitions at WSC. So I learned a lot about CTF creations and also working on my soft skills, leadership skills. So lots of wonderful meetings with Mary.
I love that. Yes. So I'm going to have you do a testimonial so we can show that, hey, it's not just about, you get these kinds of skills. That's the whole, it's not just tech skills. It's the whole person.
Exactly. And like you mentioned too, the confidence. Yes. Speak your mind. Yeah. You're very inspirational, Mary.
Oh, don't say that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We are so similar when it comes to that.
We're so humble. Yes, we're humble.
I love her.
Yeah. But that could be, so hear me out. That could also be detrimental to our growth, to our We have to accept compliments.
Yeah.
That, hey, we're doing something that's benefiting somebody.
Right.
Right. And it's a hard thing for me to learn. I'm getting better.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Yeah. And, like every time I see you, like every time I see you in the meetings, for example, like when I hear you speak and everything, it's very like elegant. It's very eloquent. It's very clear. It's yeah. You're not going like up and down. Like you're calm, like and collective. And I'm like, wow, that takes a lot of confidence to present yourself because it's not easy.
No, I get
It's
nervous
not.
every time. Anytime I'm getting ready to go on something, even this, I'm like, oh God, am I going to say something wrong? Is my hair going to look funny? Am I going to have food in my teeth? Am I going to stutter? Like all that stuff all the time.
You're doing great. You're doing really great.
Thank you. So are you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This took 3 years.
It doesn't matter. You got here.
That's
Right?
true.
Now the sky's the limit still. You
Yes.
can continue to improve, and you're educating and training the next group of folks that are going to come up that want to do the same thing that you do.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I remember we were talking about this too in Cyberjutsu. I was like, can we have like more YouTube exposure? Can we have more
We're
of
getting
this?
there, yes. We're getting on there. I've been putting stuff too, and we're going to start doing some lives on there, and because I was like, we got to get more stuff on the YouTube channel. So yes, definitely.
My voice is hurt. I was like giving a push each time. I was like,
Yes.
I know. I feel like nowadays, like we were saying too, our digital presence is even more important than before, especially like in job hunting for job seekers. I also tell people too, I'm like, yeah, your resume, it should have a good story and, do apply, but don't just rely on the resume anymore. Like your digital presence can sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times bring the first conversation to a job.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I recommend too cover letters. And I just started doing this mainly because I'm always looking to improve my skills when it comes to interviewing and applying because that just helps other places. Plus, I'm like, okay, can I get a director job or something someplace? Let me see. The last few roles I've looked at, I've a cover letter to see if maybe that helps you stand out from the others. And so sometimes you got to play the game and figure out, okay, what pieces and parts are going to work with those jobs that people find. Talking to the recruiter. LinkedIn is great for connecting with those people, connecting with recruiters and saying, hey, I'm interested in this role. This is my qualifications. I wanted to know if you could tell me a little bit more about the culture or tell me whatever it looks like. And they can either respond or they won't, right? But at least you put it out there in the elements that, hey, I want to apply for this. I'm interested in this. And I'm taking the steps necessary to make that next move.
Yeah, the recruiters are great on LinkedIn and try to find them as soon as you can
Yes.
because they can get overwhelmed because everyone's using, like we were talking about earlier, AI. So they can get bombarded.
Mm-hmm.
So you find them. You can find them online sometimes at Cyberjutsu conferences.
Cyberjutsu conferences or in our Slack channel. Yeah, there's a lot of recruiters in there, always hiring, looking for folks. And then if you can't find something, create your own.
Exactly.
Become an entrepreneur. There's a lot of funding out there in each of these states, wherever you're at. The SBA website has a lot of funding opportunities. The Chamber of Commerce groups, if you're not familiar with those, there's plenty. We've got like 50 here in Las Vegas for literally everything.
I need to go to Vegas.
We have the Asian Chamber of Commerce, the Christian, the urban, the regular, the Southern Nevada, which is veteran specific. There's a Chamber of Commerce, which is a group of small businesses that do events and activities. And so you join one of those, you start making your connections, you build your network. And if you're an entrepreneur selling security services or professional development, that's a perfect place to spread your message and share what it is you do.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I feel like nowadays, in the age of AI itself or the information age, you can go either one or two routes. You can go the employee routes, or you can be an entrepreneur in cybersecurity, and they're both valid roles.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to go, if one's not working, maybe entrepreneurship is the one, or maybe it's being an employee and working from the ground up.
Right, yeah. Or going to the startup world.
Yeah.
1099, that way, government contracting, same thing.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned contracting because I think that is becoming one of the new newest and most popular jobs now because it's so hard for a lot of people to
Mhm.
get a traditional like full-time role. I feel like
Yeah.
contract is it seems to be one of the most popular.
Yep. And it's good with the government. When I was working for the government, I was a government contractor. Even though I worked for those agencies, I worked for the company. It was a Veshka. It's something else now. They got bought. But then I worked for General Dynamics, who contracted me out to the government. And then I worked for, all these different other companies before becoming a federal employee. And then I said, yeah, I'm out, and became a civilian.
Hey, but that's good. You got the experience.
Yes, government work is great, by the way, for experience. Even if you don't go into cyber, working in the IT 2210 government group section, 2210 is the IT specialist. That's usually where all of your IT, your security, or your cybersecurity stuff falls under that particular code. And in the government, each type of job has what is it called? I don't know what it's called, some sort of designation. And so if you see 2210, that's an IT job. They also pay more than
Yeah,
some
I've seen that.
in the
I've seen
government.
that recently. The
Yeah.
pay's pretty good, folks. Yeah, if
It's not
cyber
bad.
is harder to get into, pivot in that way.
Yeah. And then once you're in an agency, like actual GS jobs come open, the government service, government something, you can apply for those jobs and you're already in there, right? So you can talk to the folks that are hiring and managing that to say, hey, I'm interested in this role. I want to go from contract to government. And now you're a little bit more set. I know what happened earlier this year with the administration and everybody getting fired, but the government still has a need. There's still mission critical roles that can't be let go. And a lot of those folks are IT folks. You just got to go back in the office. That's the only problem.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's returned to office. Even companies like Google, for
Mhm.
example, Microsoft.
Yeah.
There's so many now, so many out there.
Even at Foot Locker, if they just built an office in Dallas, if you come on now, like if you get interviewed and they offer you a job, they want you to be in Dallas so that you can go into the office. Yeah. So it's a thing, right? We're in a weird world.
Yeah, we went from in person to
Mm.
fully remote and then hybrid remote and then back to
Back to fully in person. Yeah.
originally we were supposed to film this episode during Black History Month.
Yes. But life
So I
happens.
definitely want to mention that this is a very like late, happy belated Black History Month. Super belated. I want to know like your experiences. I feel like this is your specific experiences like being a Black woman in either tech or cybersecurity, like your perspective, tips, all the things. I feel like a lot of women of color have these questions and thoughts.
My experience has been an interesting one. And I don't know if it's been bad or good. I will say this current job that I'm on has the most women. I'm still the only Black woman in the team, but we have the most women on this team now. I think it's diverse. But previous jobs, I've been the only woman, I've been the only Black person. And sometimes it can be a challenge, people will point out your hair a lot, weirdly enough. It's just hair. It grows out of my head like everybody else's.
Right?
You just change it. If I want to put a fake hair on, I can. If I want to braid it, I can. If I want to cut it in a mohawk, I can. Right. But there's always someone that has something to say about the hair. There's people that want to touch your hair. I had a lady, she was an executive assistant. She wanted to touch my hair one day and I
Oh
jumped
my
back and I was like, what? And she's like, I still want to touch it. You could touch mine. I said, I don't want to touch your hair.
God.
I'm not a pet. Like, why are you petting me? Like,
Oh,
what
that's
is
tough.
happening right now? But it's like things like that. My attire is always something because I like fashion, right? So I'm not a traditional. I will put on a hoodie. I have hoodies all over the house, but I like to wear heels and get dressed up nice, and sometimes put on a little lip color, where just be in my feminine self. And that's always an issue, concern. Somebody always has something to say. There's always tons of microaggressions all the time, and I think that's a thing that happens because people are uneducated.
Yeah.
Some of them, they choose to be uneducated, right? And so some of the things you say, you can't say, well, when somebody's getting killed on TV, well, that's what they deserved or that's what they get. Like, you can't say those kinds of things, right? Because
No.
that's not right,
Mhm.
and we shouldn't really talk about those things at work, but you have folks that will say those things and not pay attention to the fact that what you're saying actually directly impacts the person sitting next to you, right? Because that could have been that person, you know? So a lot of us can't be passionate about the work, because if you're passionate, you're aggressive. Never tell a Black woman she's aggressive.
Oh no,
Doesn't go well.
folks, note that.
Note that
Please.
it doesn't go well, because basically what you're saying is my passion is not allowed to happen, but everybody else's is, right? We have to police our voices. We have to police our authentic self a lot in spaces. And so when you find a space that doesn't require you to do that, it's a safe space for you to develop, for you to grow, for you to not be in the fight or flight mode consistently. It's unfortunate, but society has conditioned folks to think that other groups are, you know, inferior to, I don't like to say it, but inferior to the majority of white folks. And that's not necessarily the case. And so, which is why we see all of the stuff that's happening right now in society, in culture. Man, we're in an interesting time to be alive right now. I mean, while it can suck, to be alive, to see like history repeating itself. It's wild. It's crazy. It's scary.
I do like the fact that you mentioned like a lot of different things, because again, these conversations are not really talked about, or people are really afraid to talk about it. But for me, and I don't want people calling me aggressive either.
Yeah.
I'm also a minority.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so you've probably had experiences too. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And
I've gotten mistaken as Latina a lot. I'm not Latina.
yeah.
So I am half Italian, I'm half Korean, but nobody knows what I am.
So it's an assumption that
Yeah.
you're
Like if you have curly hair, you're automatically one race, and one race, or they'll think I'm like fully one other race or other races. I'm racially ambiguous. I guess that's the best way to put it. So that's why I like to bring up culture a lot, like within cyber. Like I'm doing the polyglot, or for those who don't know what polyglot is, a person that speaks at least a few more languages, more than one. Like I would say 2 or 3 or more different languages. For those who don't know, I do weekly sessions with folks with all levels. So Mary, you're obviously welcome.
I'm gonna come, because I don't know if I want to learn multiple, but I do want to learn another one.
Yeah. So we have English, we have Spanish, and we have Korean. Those are the top 3, because those are the only 3 that I'm like the best at. The best first.
But hey, that works. We can throw some French in there too at some point, or some Mandarin. Mandarin's a cool one. Yeah.
That's a hard one.
But you know.
Probably could work with it because it's similar to Korean in some ways.
Okay.
Some ways. Yeah, a lot of Korean words have like Chinese characters that go back to it.
Yeah, we'll have to have that conversation about your culture next, because
Yeah.
I've got some Korean friends and I'm like, you got to talk to me about this. What is it like? What's it like in Korea? Like all of those things. I do want to visit over there because I'd love to travel.
You should. It's a beautiful country. If you like shopping, you like fashion, you like food.
All of it. Yes.
All of it. Yeah, it's going to be great. I think you'll love it.
So, okay, cool. I'm going to Korea soon.
Yay! Yeah, maybe there'll be like, I don't know, I'm hoping to have in the future some type of like meetup or some sort.
Yes. Let's do it. Yes.
I feel like I'm probably one of the few people I know online that's like half Korean that can speak somewhat Korean and can speak English. So I want to bring the Korean folks in, American folks in, people from all over the world somehow.
You're fluent in Korean, right? So you could do a whole presentation in it?
I'm intermediate. I can do some. I learned Korean in a very non-traditional, let's put it that way. I learned a lot growing up, but then when it comes to like doing a presentation in Korean, I'm still a work in progress.
I asked that question because with Wicked Six, we usually try to get speakers from different regions and they can speak their presentation in their language, so that the folks that don't necessarily speak English can still get an understanding of cybersecurity and some of the topics in cybersecurity. So that's why I brought that up.
Sorry.
No. But if you know somebody, we've done in the past with, like Marcel did a presentation for Not Pink Con, and she had one of our other members, Estella, on as the translator. So Marcel would talk, and then she would translate in Spanish. And so we could do something similar. And that goes for anybody listening. Like if
Yeah.
you want to speak, teach, mentor, tell your story, obviously talk to Angela, but we would love to have you on Cyberjutsu as well, and just to share your story out with more people.
So we know you didn't just start off as the CEO.
No, I did not.
Let's talk about that, the journey.
The journey. So 2013, no, that's a lie. 2012, I took the CISSP and I failed it by 4 points. And I was living in North Carolina at the time. Yeah, I was so hurt. And I went back through, so I got in the car and I'm flipping through my notes and I'm like, damn it, that was it. I knew what it was the first time. So I went back and I was like, okay, fine. One of the guys that I worked with, an older gentleman, said, get a study group. And I was like, I don't want to do a study group. I like to just study on my own. And so I was moving back to DC anyway to get the job at Homeland Security. I just typed in women in security and looked up study group, and Cyberjutsu popped up. And I was like, oh, what's this? This seems cool. Went to my first one in March. And I was like, oh, this is cool. There was like 8 or 9 of us in there with Lisa answering questions. And I was like, dang, I know this stuff. What am I doing? Why didn't I pass it the first time? That was kind of how I first got introduced to Cyberjutsu, was through the study group. And then I started going to the workshops. And I was like, this is really cool. There's 40 of us in this room at Tech Corner out in Tyson's Corner. It's not there anymore. They knocked it down. They put some nice high rise up. But we would meet in Tech Corner once a month on Saturdays, do workshops, and we'd have the virtual component. And that summer, Lisa added me to the board, the very first board. And we put together the paperwork to start the nonprofit. So myself, Marcel, Elena, she's still on the board too, created the first board for Cyberjutsu. And I became the COO, helping Lisa after doing the finances and whatnot. And then when Lisa stepped down, I stepped into the role. Been in it since right before COVID. We were a bunch of tech folks that really didn't have experience starting a business, had no clue what we were doing. We were just like, okay, who's done it before us? How do we do this? But what's been built has been built by the members, right? Folks like you and Marcel and Roxy and Siobhan and Tanisha and Vic and all of the folks that have contributed to a class, a workshop, the website, finding us sponsors and whatnot. Cyberjutsu is truly a community tribe of folks that takes people, no matter where you are in your career, what you look like, how you dress. You don't have to dress like a hacker. You can if you want to. You can dress however you want, and sometimes I have red hair, like fire red, and
it looks nice, folks, when you see it.
Yeah, like it's one of those things. Come as you are, we want you. You're here to learn and grow and build your community. Cyberjutsu has significantly changed my life, I think, because I've gotten to meet so many awesome women and men and attend so many events and be able to pass that on to others to be able to go to those events and those programs and connect and change their career paths and trajectory and help them build their confidence. I don't always bring that up because I'm not here to take the accolades and the credit, right? I'm here to help you guys, which in turn helps me. So
yeah. And obviously I mentioned this like throughout the whole episode today. You've definitely impacted my life. Like I remember when we met in person in 2022, I just got over like a car accident at the time.
Yep.
That was so crazy. And then we finally met in person. I was like, what do you mean I got an award?
Yeah, look what you've been doing.
Yeah,
you've been doing great.
Yeah, that was a really good experience. That was my first WSC conference. So that was
the
really
first one in person too.
Yeah,
because we just came out of COVID and it was like, okay, let's go back in person. Let's see what we can do and how we can do it. I will say nonprofit volunteer work, or even working for a nonprofit, even part-time, or offering your services is a fantastic way to gain experience, right?
Yes.
As I go through my MBA program, it's an executive MBA program. And as I go through business coaching and things like that, I'm like, I've done all this stuff already with this over here, right? And so it teaches you finance, accounting, legal, strategy planning, resource development. I've never managed people before. I manage volunteers now, and I have to figure out, okay, I got to work with their schedules. I got to, figure out how to pay them, how to get them resources, all of these things that you do in a business when you want to scale and when you want to grow. And so I always recommend, if you can, get in, get in on the operation side of a nonprofit just to see how it's run and take those skills. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, like I see Angie's going to be an entrepreneur. She's got her own group now. Take that knowledge and use it and put it on your resume.
Yes.
Put it on your resume. 60% of recruiters like to see that because it shows you're doing something outside of just the tech, right? And you have additional experiences. So you're working with a nonprofit, a volunteer group, your church, put the stuff that you're doing and let them know that you're doing stuff outside of just your regular day-to-day.
I agree. I mean, that's how we met, was through a nonprofit.
Exactly.
And then other businesses came out of it too, and other nonprofits like Tanisha's as well,
Mm-hmm.
and mine as well. I started making CTFs, did blogging, obviously YouTube, tutoring. Now I have like four
Yeah, you
different
get a lot of jobs. Yeah, we call that Jamaican because somebody would ask me that. They're like, you do what? You do what? Because I do taxes too, and I used to work at a tax office. But I
Mhm.
would do taxes. I would teach. I was doing the cyber thing. I'm like, why am I doing all this? But because I like to be busy, because it's making
Yeah.
me impact. And so, yeah, just don't burn out.
Yeah. Oh, I
Don't-
definitely take breaks.
yes.
Yeah. I think this will be one of the last ones for this month for
Okay.
filming. So
Good.
yeah, I've been just doing more YouTube shorts. Sorry, folks. But it's showcasing what I've been learning. So I'm keeping folks, updated. So I'm not like leaving this community behind. But
Good. That's good though. Yeah.
your podcast and your book.
My book. So I've got a couple. And yesterday, apparently I didn't even pay attention to the book yesterday, dropped a year ago. The Certified in Cyber Study Guide that myself and Amina Jamali wrote together. So if you're looking to get the Certified in Cyber, there is an additional resource out there for you. And then Securing Our Future, that's with 15 other Black women in cybersecurity and governance and risk, entrepreneurs, senior executives, individual contributors, and we all came together to write a book. We like to call it our love story to those coming up after us in cybersecurity. And there's lots of some really good stories in there about these women and some really good tips and tricks on navigating mentorship and navigating difficult workplaces and finding your tribe, your crew, your squad, and just excelling. It gives you an idea of you're not alone, right?
Right.
And this isn't just for Black women, it's for anybody. There's probably a story that resonates in there with people. Me failing my CSSP resonates with a lot of folks. And so we share those stories to help this next group of cyber professionals and tech professionals make good decisions in the space.
Yeah, it is a good book. You guys should read it. Definitely read it. Read them
Yes.
all. Read both.
Read them all. Writing a book is fun and draining, and it's not going to make you a lot of money, but unless you become like a New York Times bestseller, and we learned through the process that that's really difficult and really expensive to do.
Yeah.
Securing Our Future is an Amazon bestseller. I think it was 2 or 3 times, but
Wow, that's awesome.
we're not going to quit our jobs. Royalties from that, right? That was our gift to the masses, and we hope it inspires and helps someone or multiple people throughout their journey in their career.
And I think it does. I read a little bit about it. I haven't finished, but I mean, Mary's story, you got to check that out. Obviously, not trying to be biased. Everybody's story is great, okay?
Yeah, there's some really good ones.
You're right here, looking right here. But definitely check out everyone's stories. They all have, each story, like you said, has their own perspective from their own lens that people can relate to. So they don't feel like you said, like they're not alone at all.
Yeah, and then the podcast, still working on that. However, I have the podcast equipment. I've got access to a couple of studios here in Las Vegas, but I don't know if it's going to be tech related.
Okay.
I think it's going to be, there'll be some tech stuff in there. We'll talk about like AI and trends and things like that. But I think it's going to be more about professional development, relationship, and over the years. And so I'm not an expert in any of it, but I've dealt with some things that is like, oh my gosh, and the confidence things and the relationship side of things. And so still toying around with what we want to talk about, but it's myself and a friend of mine. We have a lot of in the car conversations, and they can get pretty heated. We're like, let's go on the podcasting thing and see if we can bring in guests, and we have these conversations and we talk about those types of things. So I will definitely keep you guys posted.
Yeah, please. That way we can share it.
Yes.
Even if it's like months after this episode, I will put it in the description box, give you a shout out. Gotta give the credit where it's due.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. Oh, and obviously, before we do end this amazing episode with Mary, I want to definitely talk about your Legos. I say that to the very end.
Yeah, so I am a huge Lego collector. I have been collecting Lego sets. Like, I played with them as a kid. Obviously, like a lot of us, I feel the big blue box of them. But then when I got into architecture and started going, I feel like I went to the bookstore, Barnes and Nobles or Books a Million or something. And I was like, oh, what is this? They had these Lego sets in there. I said, what is this? And it was Lego architecture. And I said, So my very first Lego architecture set was the White House. And I have that in the hallway. And, while I was in school, I would buy some pieces and parts and things like that. Over the last, I'm about to age myself.
Okay, you don't look your age, by the way, for those who do not know.
Over the last 20 years or so, I've collected, I think, like 89 sets or something like that. Over 90,000 different Lego pieces. Everything from small, like this little heart thing here that sits on a little shelf and it's got chocolates in it.
Cute.
Yeah, little chocolate things, to the Eiffel Tower. I have the Eiffel Tower downstairs, the botanicals, so flowers all over the place. This Lego wall is, this is the world map here. And so, and then around it are the Lego skylines. So they have 14 different skyline sets that are out. And so I was like, let me put them around. I've been to probably half of the places, so I have to go to some of the others. But as you can see, there's Lego everywhere. I've got a Nintendo set, a Pac-Man. I have the Atari here waiting to be built.
We're similar.
Yeah, I've got so much stuff over here that whenever Lego comes, they have the Home Alone house. That's my next build. Because I'm a big fan of Home Alone. So that is a Jeopardy question. Yes. My favorite Christmas movie is Home Alone of all times. And they have a Home Alone house with all of those little details that I'm going to get. That's the next one. So I love to build. Lego takes me away for a little bit, and I'm able to just focus on that and kind of let the other stuff disappear and go. And we're good to go.
I like that. Honestly, I feel like that when it comes to like puzzles or I don't know if you've seen those like mini Japanese houses.
Yep, I have one downstairs.
So we have a lot in common. I'm just talking about this today, folks. We don't talk about this. We usually talk about WSD. Yeah. But these are touch grass topics. So.
Yes, I do puzzles as well. There's a 60,000 piece one that I want to get. I'm fascinated with world maps, and because I love to travel. And so there's a 60,000 piece one that this lady I follow on TikTok and Instagram, I think her name is MJ Puzzles or KJ Puzzles. It's 1,000 piece puzzles that she put together. And then it makes the one big, like 28 feet wide. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. That's what I want next. So Home Alone and 60,000 piece Lego set.
Let's go, Mary.
I'll have it so that we can all come here and work on it together.
Yeah, that's the good party of its own. It doesn't always have to be about cyber. It can be just, doing fun things together, bonding.
So, but that's what I do. That's me. I gotta go. I have a date.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right. We're over time today. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for joining. And thank you everybody else for joining. See you in the next one. Bye.